Let's talk about how to age props. And by that, I mean how to take something brand new off the shelf and make it look older or broken in. This was brand new to me today, but my friend Jake was here to teach us. We got some friends together, we got some supplies together, and Jake showed us the ropes. Turns out some of the tools for this are really basic, like sandpaper and those green scrubby pads you find in the kitchen. Some of the tools were a little more specialized. I'll let Jake tell you about them.
Today for our little props workshop, I brought down some paints and schmears that we use on the sets in Vancouver that I work on to turn brand new things into old things. They're some of my favorite products. They're pretty much made specifically for films and filmmakers. One of my favorites here is movie paints. They come in a couple different colors, and they're totally washable off non-porous surfaces, which can be awesome if you're like spraying metal stuff. You just wipe it off right after. And then there's also kinds of schmears, which can come in either powder form or in this kind of like colored wax stick. And I brought us today in raw umber colors and burnt umber. These are just some of the most common ones that we use most of the time on sets.
So our challenge today was to age a letter to home, World War II era letter, but really it was just printed out of an inkjet printer this morning. So how do we make it look older? How old do we want it to look? The other prop is a hat. We had a few hats donated to us by a local coffee shop, and we got to break those in as well. Let's start with the hat.
We had recently wrapped up a shoot about a couple months ago where we shot a farmer who was out in the field, and so I wanted to make a hat that we should have used or could have used for that scene. I took some sandpaper and some Scotch paper and just kind of roughed up the bill, kind of break it up, bring out some of the threads, and then from there I took just sandpaper and just kind of rubbed the entire hat down to try to cut down on some of the sheen and the glare and try to bring out some of these threads, trying to bring out some of the texture to it. I wanted to make the entire hat look dirty, like he was working in a dusty field for summers. So I just kind of sprayed the nicotine color everywhere and really tried to cut down on the white in the back and try to make it look old and just kind of sweaty and nasty. Then I took some of the darker, I think it's called the dark rust or dark brown material, and applied it to the front to try to bring out some of those sweat stains that are ever so famous on baseball caps. And then after that, I don't actually know what it's called, but it's this, like, it kind of looks like a deodorant stick. So I kind of went over the edge of the cap, I went over kind of the edges, and then kind of smeared it and smoothed it out to kind of fade it into the rest of the hat. Just with my hand, I was just, and some Scotch paper, some Scotch-Brite, just by kind of rubbing it, it's kind of smoothed it out and brought out some of the texture to the different elements of the hat. I guess that's kind of what I did, and it worked out actually a lot better than I thought. It only took like 15 minutes to make it look like this.
So I imagine this one being in rubble after a big fire. I folded it first and wanted these creases to be really, really heavy because I wanted it to look pretty old. And so I folded it, and then I went and applied paint to it, which was the nicotine paint first. I did nicotine as a base, and then I did rust around the edges. A little bit of the rust paint around the edges to really, really make it look worn on these spots and handled like a lot. And then I kept on folding it, started crinkling it to get some just like wrinkled texture. And that's when this big giant gap happened that I was like, oh, I was not intending for that to happen. So I folded too much. I'm like, all right, we're gonna lean into it. So my story, my background kind of came around with it. So I'm like, okay, we're just gonna go super aged with this. I started bringing some of the brown powder and started doing the dusting a lot of the edges. I wanted there to be pieces missing. And so from that point, I decided now I want this to have more of a burnt look because I love burned edges. There were a couple of missed spots where I tried the little wax stick across these creases to make those more accentuated, but those didn't work out as well. They look more like wax creases, and so I tried to buff them out a little bit. But you know, overall, I think it was serving the purpose of the story. If they're just looking around document, you know, for whatever's left, it would serve its purpose because this is the farthest it can go.
thanks for watching. And if you want to see the next one, hit the subscribe button. Jake and I are planning a couple more workshops this year, and in the meantime, I plan to make a lot more of these videos. At the end of March, I get to speak at the PhotoLush conference, and if you're interested in coming, there's a discount code that I'll put in the description below. That's the last weekend of March. And in the meantime, we can learn more by making than we can by talking. So let's get to it. See you soon.